Oh, and we are live. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is the Wednesday weekly roundtable with the Liberty First Foundation. Oh, Frank did join us. Go ahead, Frank, take it off.
Oh no, go ahead. You guys just beat me to the punch. I was just trying to grab the computer and drag it out into the backyard.
At least
all
you
right.
can.
Well,
It's too wet up here.
yeah. we just got a break in the rain here for the first time in about 36 hours. So I figured I'd take the opportunity to come out here and let the mosquitoes feast on me for a little while. Ladies and gentlemen,
weight loss plan.
Yeah, well, I wish they sucked out the fat instead of the blood, but that's beside the point. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I'm Frank Johnson, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation and host of the ever-popular YouTube channel, The Range Report. To my left is Michael Vasquez, dragon of the Southern Tier, New York's only truly independent journalist. He is the boogeyman of the left. Dal Grimm, coming to us low and center, coming all to us from New York. He says, live free, fight well, liberty first. There you go. Oh, gentlemen, it's been quite the week in the news so far, from what I understand.
Yeah, there's some breaking news that just came out, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen it yet. I've been locked out of Twitter. X.
It just came out about half an hour ago that a Manhattan judge just struck down all of the tariffs from President Trump.
Who is this judge?
Is breaking news. It just came out, and the markets are reacting positively, of course. But what the real cost of this, what the real impact is going to be, that's another question altogether. And I think it's judicial overreach. You guys probably haven't heard about it. The argument that the judge is making is that they're saying that Donald Trump doesn't have the right to issue tariffs, that it can only be done by Congress. I disagree. The tariffs are part of international policy and part of treaties and negotiations, which are strictly the control of the president, the executive branch. If it's domestic trade, anything happening within the continental United States, that is the purse string of Congress. But this is international trade, and international is the purview of the president. So this judge is overreaching their power and impeding the power of the president by saying, oh, Trump can't do this, when absolutely, constitutionally, this is purely in the power of the president. At least
anything that comes into the United States of America from a foreign entity has to go through the State Department for approval. Those agreements, those negotiations are all done at the State Department level, which are part of the executive branch. As far as what the judge can rule on are things having to do with the Interstate Commerce Clause, which is state to state, which the government is allowed to regulate trade between the states, not foreign entities. All those foreign entities have to go through the State Department, executive branch. The president has the authority to put tariffs on. Has nothing to do with Congress. This judge is purely an activist judge. Got no say in this thing. But once again, we have a situation where you got a judge who's going to, issue some politically motivated edict, which is going to wind up getting overturned, but in the process is going to cause all kinds of mayhem in the market. People are going to lose money. People who shouldn't make money are going to make money on it. The whole system gets turned upside down, and when a judge gets found to be wrong, there's no price to be paid for it. Because judges can do whatever they want with impunity in this country, because they think they're the sole arbiter of what's right and wrong, even though this is clearly out of their jurisdiction.
Well, before you answer, Dow, also keep in mind that not only is this going to affect everybody, as far as I'm aware, and according to the breaking news that I've seen so far, and again, this is developing about half an hour in, there is no court case that this judge is responding to. He just voluntarily jumped in So that makes it judicial activism, because this isn't a court case. As far as I saw, and as far as I'm aware, there is no underlying lawsuit that he made this decision on. He just said he doesn't like the deal, and so he stopped it. So he can't even say, well, this is part of his, they brought it to him. No, he just jumped in and said, I don't like the tariffs. That's wrong. That's wrong. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dal.
I was going to say the only way that
Actually, turn up the volume because now you're too low.
Okay. What I was going to say was the only way that Congress has any ability for influencing anything that has to do with foreign diplomacy is in the area of treaties. Treaties are where the Senate has to be involved in order to ratify any sort of foreign agreements, and that usually is in the purview of military treaties or long-term, what would you call it? Like, not long-term agreements, but long-term relations that have very delineated, what's the word I'm searching for? Would have very specific delineated conditions to it that require the United States to behave in a certain way in order to interact with that foreign entity. That's the only way that any congressional purview comes into international relations. Otherwise, it's strictly in the purview of the presidency. Any kind of trade agreements, any kind of foreign, as Frank says, any kind of foreign products or companies that would be coming into the United States have to be cleared at the State Department level, which is under the executive branch's purview. So this judge, especially without a case, when no one has brought a case, but he has just ruled as would a monarch that this is null and void, that's a definite overreach of the judiciary. They don't they don't have the ability to bring a question. Someone else has to bring a question to the court in order for it to be debated. The court itself will bring the question.
I don't remember 78 million people voting for this judge to oversee our, foreign relations, and to oversee the State Department or the executive branch. I don't remember ever seeing that happen. But this is another example of this is what happens when you allow leftists to stack the courts with activist judges. They think they can just come in, do whatever they want, and I'm going to be the first one to say I think we better look at this judge's bank account and see who's been putting money in it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think a judge would be stupid enough to do that on their personal account. Campaign, maybe.
We just had a judge stupid enough to get herself caught escorting an illegal alien out of a courtroom with ICE on the other side looking for him. Judges are just as stupid as anybody else. Any judge that's going to make this ruling is already proven to be pretty stupid, because they should know damn well that they're out of their league when they're dealing with this. But this is another judge who says, hey, when it gets overturned and, it's no skin off my nose, I won't be, there's no price for me to pay to act like this, to do what it is. So, why the hell not? They act with impunity all the time. So I'm going to say the judge is probably on the take. Let's see where the judge's spouse or children work and see how much money they've been making. Because it always seems to come back to somebody in the family getting a payoff.
At this rate?
I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think it's ideological. I think it's purely just ideological and not more than that. But I could be wrong on that. But I think it's insane that this.
Well, you remember this. This is the same group of people who are out there complaining, like Hillary Clinton in her quoted text. Nobody gets a $400 million gift from a foreign country and is expected that it doesn't have strings attached. How many billions of dollars has the Clinton Foundation taken in from foreign entities over the years? And we're expected to believe that they didn't, bend the will of the Clinton Foundation to the? I mean, wait, how much?
Well,
How much money is that helicopter worth that Bill's still flying around in that he got from the Saudis?
Well, we know for a fact that the Clinton Foundation, 80% of every dollar that is raised for the Clinton Foundation, like for Haiti, that actually went to Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea, their daughter. That's a fact. Less than 20 cents, actually, after you take out operational fees and employees, roughly about 7-ish, 10-ish cents out of every dollar actually was used in Haiti for helping people. And again, 80% goes to Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea. That's a fact. So it's one of the worst foundations and philanthropy groups in the world. That's just documented fact.
And I would be comfortable in saying that probably the 7 to 10 cents that actually went to Haiti to help people wound up in the coffers of the government that never actually got to the people at all.
Quite possible. Quite possible.
I would be comfortable in saying that. I mean, knowing how many foreign governments work when they receive foreign aid, that if the government there got the money, but they just never passed it off to their people, that's very probable. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah. And by the way, just to show everyone, I have the news right here with me. Bear with me. I'm actually checking on the news and something else as well at the same time, but just so people can see. This is the news that's coming from Reuters. You can see it came out at 7, about an hour ago, 7:15 tonight. It just came out. I saw it 9 minutes after it had initially come out that they're blocking this. This is a U.S. federal court that blocked it. There is no other case. This is a Manhattan-based court. They haven't even put out the name of the judge. So it makes me wonder who the hell did this. I think they're protecting the judge at the moment because they put out their name, and they should have. With the decision, we should know which judge in this court made this decision. The fact that Reuters isn't showing anyone that is telling us that they're protecting that judge. They don't want people to look up that judge's history. That's the impression I would get, because they know this. They knew it when the judgment came down. It has a judge's name on it.
Did they even say it was a federal court? Yeah, it must have been.
It is a federal
court. Okay.
Yeah, this is the Court of International Trade. So it tells you a little bit right there. And this, again, this is breaking news. So not a lot of people are going to know much about it. But I think this, and the market's going to react very positively. Mind you, the markets are emotional. As a stockbroker, I know this. When we were told doom and gloom, when the tariffs first came up, we heard from the news media the world was ending. What happened? Markets went down because people panicked, and then they went back up. Why? Because nothing fundamentally changed. See, nothing significantly changed. Just the people's emotions changed. That was the immediate reaction. And a lot of people lost money because they panicked because of the news media. Now you're seeing the opposite. Oh, the tariffs are gone? Not necessarily, and not permanently. And this is going to have a knock-on effect on, they're cutting the legs out of the president of the United States and his negotiations internationally. Yeah. They just said that Donald Trump is a lame duck, and that when he says something, it doesn't mean it's true. Now you can say, well, the tariffs went on and off. Yeah, but the tariffs existed. When Trump said they were on, they existed. When he says, okay, they're going to be on in 90 days, they're on. He's made policy. It's going to happen. Whether it happens immediately or not, different question. But markets around the world and the world reacts because that's a fact. They've now made it a question, which means if that's a question, anything else that Trump does, is there going to be another judge that says, oh, we're going to put a sanction on Russia? Will that go through? Or will a judge say you can't do that? If we're talking about peace deals. I mean, think about India, Pakistan, where the United States was pivotal, according to international media. Yeah, a lot of people have tried to say, well, Orange Man Bad wasn't that big. The initial reports, everyone came out and said it was Trump that made it happen. Did he do that because he made a deal, a business deal with India and or Pakistan to say, hey, if you keep fighting, we're going to slap sanctions on both of you. If you work with me, I'll make a better business deal, maybe lower tariffs, maybe some kind of deal 3-6 months down the road, and you guys will be able to make extra money. And that, along with the United Kingdom and pressure from Saudi Arabia, all of them saying, no, we're going to back America on this. We'll all do deals with you if you calm down. And if you don't, we're going to jump on with the tariffs along with Trump and punish you guys while you're trying to have a war. Is that the deal that was made? Maybe. Don't know for sure. But if that's the case, this judge just cut Trump's legs. India and Pakistan have no reason not to fight now. They're not going to get the money they thought they were going to get, and they don't have to fear the punishment they had to fear. And therefore, that could, and if we see India, Pakistan reignite, it's because of this. This is potentially going to kill people. No one's thinking of it that way. No one's talking about it in that manner, but that's the reality that we're looking at. This could kill people around the world. It's kind of somber when you think about that.
Well, leftists never saw a war they didn't like.
It's terrifying to me. It's really, really terrifying.
I think the only court, the only case that the International Trade Court is hearing right now, that's out of New York, is VOS Selections v. Trump, and that's been brought by VOS Selections Incorporated, a Plastic Service and Products LLC, Genova Pipe, Micro Kits LLC, Fish USA Incorporated, and Terry Precision Cycling LLC.
No, this would be specifically about tariffs. So it
Yeah.
would have to be the Small Business Council or a national entity would have to be the ones that would bring this to U.S. courts. They haven't. There is no case.
That is the one that's in court right now, and it was filed as of April 14th. And it's about the tariffs that were instituted under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA. And they're saying that it does not authorize the president to unilaterally issue across-the-board worldwide tariffs. So those first oral arguments were heard today.
But that's not someone seeking an injunction to stop the president. Oral arguments, that's a debate. We see that with the Supreme Court.
Right.
That's not an act of the courts or act of law where they're saying stop this because this case will make a decision. No, this is okay. We're arguing this. That's the normal procedure. That doesn't mean we have to take action. They have to ask for that. They have to say in court, we must have action while this court case is decided. That's where the injunction would come in. No one's filed for that, at least according to the reporting that I'm seeing right now.
ABC News is carrying it. Politico is carrying it as well.
AP, everyone's starting to cover it now. The question is, and it's all about who has it. And what I'm looking for is the judge's name. A 3-panel. Okay, it's 3 judges.
Yeah.
Several lawsuits. Right now, I'm reading this from the Associated Press, and according to their second paragraph, this is in relation to a 3-judge panel after several lawsuits, but that's not an injunction. They just made it up themselves. They just said so.
Yeah. So what they're basically taking from the oral arguments today of that case I just cited was probably that the judges have decided that based on oral arguments, they have the ability to proceed against the tariffs, and the media is running with it as if it's already been decided. That would be my guess.
Yeah, but they don't have this right.
No, they don't.
This is
But
a
that
little
doesn't-
bit of a policy wonk for people who don't follow this. They don't have the right to just say this. That's not the power of a judge.
They're saying that because of the Constitution's express allocation of the power of the tariff power to Congress, we do not read IEEPA to delegate an unbounded tariff authority to the president. We instead read IEEPA's provisions to impose meaningful limits on any such authority it confers, the ruling said.
They're trying to go to 1977 and 1971. The thing is, according to the Constitution, it is the right of the president to negotiate internationally with foreign policy, all foreign powers, and to make policy with them. And in the case of treaties, he can negotiate the treaty, and then the Senate has the right to approve or deny that treaty. But he can create the treaty because it's part of him creating the policy. He speaks for the United States internationally. Congress does not have that right. This is unconstitutional. I understand how they want to read this, which is to try and take power away from President Trump so they can stop the tariffs, but they don't have that power constitutionally. And this is going to create policy nightmares. They don't realize the consequences of this. This is more than just the tariffs. Yes, your IRA may go up tomorrow. That is insanely short-term thinking about this. This is a long-term issue. This deals with wars that are going on. This is about how countries are going to interact with the United States at every level of government. If the president, unlike Biden, who is a zombie and we don't know who is in charge, they're now saying Trump is in charge, but he has no power. That makes him essentially the equivalent of King Charles. He's the king of England, but he can't do anything. Everything's done by Parliament. We don't want that.
No.
We really don't want to be in the same situation as England. I mean, I don't know if I can explain it in the minutia or to summarize it. And I'm trying to summarize it based on the information as it's coming out. The impact of this is way bigger than whether or not your IRA or the stock market goes up tomorrow.
Yeah, and there's nothing in the Constitution of Section 8 that actually says anything about Congress having tariff power. There's nothing. The only thing that they have, and this is in Section 8 in the first paragraph, they have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. They can regulate commerce with foreign nations. That's like the third section. And among the several states and with the Indian tribes. So they're probably pointing at the regulation of commerce with foreign nations as their reach to try and take away the executive branch's ability to negotiate through tariffs. That would be the only thing they could clasp onto.
As it has been, to my knowledge, and there may be a lawyer out there watching that can say, oh, Mike, but you're missing this. To my knowledge, that only applies to domestic. That doesn't apply to international.
Right. That would be like having Huawei come in.
Well,
Right.
Well, Congress, under Section 8, Congress does have tariff power, even though the word tariff doesn't show up in Section 8. Congress also delegated much of its authority through the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, that delegated much of this authority as far as international trade to the president, to the executive branch. This was delegated through not only the Constitution, but by law, specific law written in 1962, which put this under the purview of the executive branch. So while the Constitution was slightly vague about it originally, because it didn't say tariff and it didn't say international, it was basically to regulate, again, interstate commerce and stuff like that. They clarified a little in 1962 by giving that authority to the executive branch. The tariffs were actually originally, the whole Constitution was actually intended and written so that the tariffs collected nationally and internationally would be the funding mechanism for the federal government, not taxation on the individual or the people of the United States. The federal government is supposed to act by collecting tariffs from overseas. That was their budget, so that the more that our country grew, the more that we dealt with trade, the more money that the government would be able to collect and would be able to operate better.
Right.
They would be basically self-funded through whatever we traded internationally, so that the burden wouldn't be on we the people, but would be on commerce itself. And that would be collected from overseas sources.
Right. And that would, and the trade-off, the advantage for that to the American people was that whatever you made, you kept, and you could use that to expand your businesses, better your state of living, and you wouldn't have to worry about the government coming to knock on your door and going, "Hey, by the way, you owe us 50% of your income." Like, that burden wasn't on us until 1913.
Yeah, how we went from having to contribute nothing to the federal government to having to contribute half of our friggin' salary, and in some cases in the 1960s, 80 and 90% of your salary, depending upon what your tax bracket was. Yeah. This was government trying to turn around and say, how do we control the people better? Because they're freer with the more money they have, and if they're not the ones kicking in. So they said, well, how do we become more of a global partner? Well, let's eliminate taking the money from the foreign entities and take it from our citizenry as well. This gives more power to foreign governments in the way that they negotiate with the United States, because now they don't have to worry about paying the tariff if they take all of that fee and they put it on us. So we're the ones footing the bill, and foreign governments can come in and run amok all over our representation with their campaign contributions, their laundering, and everything else. This is why I said the federal government doesn't work for we the people. It works for they the world. We just happen to be the one to pay for all of it.
Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and that's one of the things that I think is a amongst people that I know, and probably folks that you both know. The biggest dissatisfaction we have right now is that the presidency is not being supported by our Congress, and really the frustration isn't necessarily on the representatives; it's on we the people. Like, we're supposed to be, we can't just stop at voting in Trump and his, the campaign promises that he had, and expecting him to be able to do the job without us, the people, ensuring the representatives that are on the other side of that administration, working in Congress supposedly for our will, are not being held to account when they don't do the job that we sent them there to do.
Well, listen, I'm not concerned with holding the other side of the aisle responsible, because I expect them to be in opposition to everything that Trump is going to do. I want to hold our side of the aisle responsible.
Right.
The 20 or 30 Republican senators who say in front of the cameras how much they support Trump, and then turn around and stab him in the back every chance they get. Exactly. Because they seem to not give a damn whether or not we care what they're doing. Everything we tell them, hey, listen, we voted for this, we voted for that. They don't care what we say.
Right.
They don't give a damn what we the people say. The only people that they listen to are the people that are exempt from the $2,600 maximum contribution level. That's who they care about. Oh, but I donated the maximum to your campaign. Yeah, well, my super PAC got $25 million from this company, so that's who I'm going to listen to. They don't care about us. It's those are the ones that I want to see held accountable.
No, but see,
we agree with you.
But we in 2024 when we voted in Trump, we showed that the voter does still have some modicum of power. So we would have to turn out at the midterms as a people and primary out those rhinos that are stabbing Trump in the back so that we could get the Congress we need to be able to function as a proper country. But the problem is that even if we show up, what are you going to replace them with?
Listen, it's not a matter of how many. It's not the vote who counts, it's who counts the votes. And the fact of the matter is that getting rid of incumbents is one of the most difficult things to do in politics. They've got name recognition, they've got resources, they've got finances. Why do you think they keep raising the bar every single year of exactly what you need to do to get on the ballot to even attempt to challenge them for their office? They don't have to worry about getting 10,000 signatures on some petition. They already have the 10,000 signatures. It's their donors. Their donors list are the people that keep them on the ballot. When you're an unknown person and you want to challenge one of these people for office, you've got 2 years of work to do. You got to quit your job, raise all kinds of money, which is impossible to do without being known. And then you got to quit your job, spend every day on the campaign trail just to get the ability to be one of a number of people to get into a primary to see who can primary the primary. It's almost impossible to get somebody off of out of their seat in Congress or the Senate right now. And they've written the rules specifically to do that. I've never seen an employee of any company be able to go to human resources and say, listen, how much can I possibly screw up my job every day by not doing what my boss told me to do, but I want to make it impossible for the boss to fire me? How can I do it? And I've never seen human resources. Well, unions, yeah, that's one way to do it. All right, but I've never seen a regular individual employee be able to go to their human resources and figure out a way how to become unfireable. Well, that's what they've done because Congress writes their own rules. Senate writes their own rules, and when they go back to their constituency in their home state, they tell the home party how to write the rules for their primary challenges. So yeah, we can call for a challenge all the live long day. We could have 100 people vie for the position, but you're never even going to get an opportunity to get on the ballot against these people. That's why so many of these people run unchallenged every year, and why you got people serving for 46 years. The only way to get them out of office is in a fucking body bag when they drop dead at their post.
Well, first of all, yes, for people who don't know, the number in 2024 was 92%. 92% of everyone who was an incumbent won. And the number historically has been about 88%. You have equal odds of retiring from Congress as dying while in office in Congress. It's that hard to get an incumbent out. And there's a lot of reasons for it. A lot of people hear about the difficulty and then they don't choose to run. As someone who has run and worked with many campaigns that have run, I can tell you that you're almost quoting my experience in running for Congress back in 2014 for the New York 22nd District. But I know people right now, one of the biggest problems, if you get through the hurdle of getting the vote signatures, the petitions to get onto the ballot, the really biggest problem, because that's not insurmountable. A lot of people do it. It can be done, even for Congress. But the biggest problem is you have to run into things like what we're seeing right now in New York in the mayoral race. You've got Andrew Cuomo. He has $25 million in a war chest from donations. The news media are sucking up to him because he's got all the ads. He can do the ad buys on every channel their stations, their newspapers, they need that money. They're desperate for money. So they're like, yeah, Cuomo's great. Do an ad on our program. And he says, sure, I'll throw $1 million at you or $500,000, whatever. And they're like, yeah, and Cuomo's great because they want another ad. But anyone else, and as an example, looking at the mayor's race is one example of it. Guys like Curtis Lewa, no matter what people think of Curtis Lewa, whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. I've been at several events covering Curtis Lewa, talking to the public. I'm the only member of the press that's there. He was out protesting about lithium batteries and the potential deadly, absolutely lethal potential of one of those plants in a residential section throughout New York. There's about over 38 locations that potentially could lead to massive, we're talking about 10,000 people or more being harmed and injured if one of those plants goes poof. And the odds are that eventually one of them will, just by the just based on the numbers of them. At least one will burn down. When they burn down, that gives off hydrochloric clouds, toxic gas, cancerous gas. It is a fire that cannot be put out through conventional means. It has to just burn itself out. That can take up to 5 or 6 days. This is data. This is based on evidence that has actually happened across the country, including in California, where we have the data. We've seen they can't put these fires out. And we've seen that it does harm children and individuals. It does, the toxic chemicals do cause cancer. And you can't get any news station. New York City is the headquarters of every news media in the nation. They all have offices here. They all have thousands of employees. Hundreds of them live in the Bronx or hundreds to thousands of them live in every single borough. And not one will cover this issue from a mayoral candidate who has been part of New York City politics for the last 50 years. He's a well-known name. He's backed by one of the big parties, actually two of them, Republicans and conservatives, and you can't find an article mentioning him. They'll only mention Andrew Cuomo and or one or two Democrats. That's it. According to the public, they think the only people running are 3 Democrats. That's it. That's in every single news article. And that's the problem. That's why we are seeing such a problem. It's not that when people make the effort, and it is hard, because I've worked the job and run for Congress, it is ball-busting hard to get that done. And I know a few people who are doing it. And then you have the next hurdle. Media doesn't give a shit, and they won't help you. They'll ignore you no matter how significant, how serious, how impactful you may be. And that's why we have this problem. And it's because people aren't paying attention. They're not asking the question, wait a minute, you mean no one else is running? Well, yeah, there are people running, but we're not going to talk about them. Why not? Are they serious people? Yes. Are they people who've been involved in politics? Yes. For decades? Yes. Some of them, yes, absolutely. And they have a serious platform? Yes. Are they backed by anyone that is serious? Yes. Oh, yeah, but we're not going to talk about them. Why not? Oh, because we're neutral. We're the news media. We're neutral. So we're just not going to talk about an entire, not just Republicans and not just conservatives, but you've got libertarians and the third parties. They won't talk about any of them. Why? Andrew Cuomo has $25 million. He can do a $100,000, $500,000 ad buy. Oh, well, we need the money. That's what it comes down to. And that's our politics, our political system. And that is insane that it's come to that. That determines who wins an election. Why does everyone think Cuomo's going to win? Because he's got the money. And with the money, he gets more donors. Everyone wants to be on his side because they want a piece of the pie that he's able to push around That's why AOC's backing him. That's why Richie Torres is backing him. They want money for their campaigns when they run for an elected office. So they want to be on the good side of the guy who's got 25 million because no one else in the race has 25 million. And if he just gives them $250,000, well, that's just an extra $250,000, $500,000 that any opponent I would run against has to raise without any news media, no help, that they got to somehow come up with that money just to get even, and that's on top of whatever money they already have.
Right.
That's why our system is so screwed up. And that's why you get judges, and you got activist judges, like these judges, who are reinterpreting the law based on political ideology. It's got nothing to do with what's in the Constitution. This is about politics. They need Trump to look bad. They need him to look weak. And they can't do it. They've been spending the last 130 days trying to figure out some way to make Trump look bad, to say that he isn't doing his job right. And they have nothing that has actually stuck. They've gone after Elon Musk. They've gone after RFK Jr. They've gone after him, Pete Hegseth, and nothing has stuck. They say, oh my God, Trump's doing such a hard job. Think about this for a second. And again, it doesn't matter if you like Trump. I could care less. That's meaningless. In the last 130 days, Donald Trump has been involved in ending more wars than Biden and Obama, Bush and Clinton combined. He's been dealing with more peace deals and trying to end more wars than all of them combined.
Yeah.
And these are their wars. He didn't start any of them. And yet we're being told, yeah, but Trump's horrible. He's not good. Does that make any sense? That's insane. But
yeah. And it's one of the reasons why it's one of the reasons why you wrote the legislation you did. If our audience does not remember, to refresh your memory, Michael Voss actually wrote a piece of legislation that we put out through the Liberty First Foundation, trying to change New York State politics so that the election law would be more fair. So that more people, this whole business of parties being able to exclude candidates would be gone. We would be able, if you got the signatures, you were on the debates, and when you were in the debates, then you were able to get so much support, then you would also be part of the ballot. And it was a very straightforward system. It already was supported by existing election law. And where did it go? Nowhere. Why? Because Albany rewrote the rules to make sure that only their chosen candidates were the ones that were able to run. And that's another reason why we have incumbents. The government is actively working against the people to make us subjects as opposed to being allowing us to be citizens.
Well, how many times have you heard me say it's one big giant party and we're not invited?
Yeah.
You know, it's not only that we're not only not invited, we're not allowed to crash the party. We're not invited, and they got bouncers at the door. Yeah, they've got a cease and desist order against us.
We're persona.
Okay, they have a protection order against all of us. I mean, aside from the fact that I've had a lot of personal conversations here in the house about the potential of me running for something at some point or another. Right. And I have been asked by certain groups here in North Carolina if I would consider running. Now, you would think, well, what is a guy from Brooklyn going to run for in North Carolina? Well, it turns out that there's a lot of New Yorkers down here in North Carolina, and there's a lot of people that, despite the fact that I look like this and sound like this, there's a lot of people down here that think like me, as far as when it comes to politics and what's right and what's wrong and stuff like that, and have asked, would I consider running for this or that, whichever. And even though the idea has crossed my mind, when I look at the personal politics of things and what the powers that be will do to somebody as they enter a race, it's frightening. to think of what they would do to not only to, eliminate your candidacy, but to destroy an individual personally, to go after them, fabricate things that you can no way, shape, or form even figure out a way how to defend against.
Yeah.
If Mother Teresa came back from the grave in Calcutta and decided that she wanted to run for a school board in any one of the 50 states, they would paint her to be the reincarnation of Satan, and there'd be no way for her to defend herself from it. Lori has made it explicitly clear to me under no circumstances would she and I have any kind of relationship left to salvage if I did run for politics. She says, not because there's a problem between you and I, it's because they would destroy us. They would come after us with both barrels and tear us apart with God knows what from who knows where. And personally, I don't really feel like it's a good idea for me to destroy my personal life or whatever I have in this world, as meager my belongings are, that I'm going to, subject them all to being taken away from me because of, me wanting to do better for my community and falling victim to lawsuits and this, that, and whatever else. They would go after me to destroy me. Unless you've got the personal finances to withstand any kind of storm they can throw at you, or unless you've lived in a closet in a basement someplace where you've never interacted with another human being, there's no place in politics for you. They will find something to use to destroy you, especially if they deem you to be a legitimate threat. Right now, the legitimate threat that any of us face is that we would have to cost them money by entering a primary. They would look at us and say, okay, every challenger that comes up for this office, we're going to have to spend $25,000 to $50,000 just trying to get them out of the race before they can even get a signature on a petition. We pose a financial risk to them. So they look at us as every one of us is a threat. But when it comes to the position of power, why would somebody spend, like Andrew Cuomo is going to do, why would somebody spend $25 million to get a job that pays $180,000? Why? What is the benefit? There has to be a benefit long beyond the power, long beyond the paycheck. There's got to be something in it for them, and it's money. It's money, it's power, it's influence, it's a couple of more, earrings for his nipples or whatever the frig he is that he's into. This guy, it's whatever it is that he's into. It just means more for him.
Right.
His legacy has already been destroyed, so he's got this idea that he's going to possibly rebuild his own reputation. But he's looking back now at Al Franken. Okay, Al Franken got drummed out of the Senate because of some sexual misconduct from a few years earlier in his administration. But when you turn around and you look at what has been gleaned from some of the people that have remained in Congress and Senate since then, Al Franken has already come out and said, well, if that's all I had to do to lose my job, I should have never resigned. There's people who did a lot worse than I did.
Yeah.
And Cuomo is the same way. He's looking at Al Franken going, well, gee, I only killed 17,000 people. There's a lot more. I could have killed a lot more and not resigned. It wasn't the people that he got drummed out of. It was his sexual misconduct and and settling for that kind of stuff. But now he's looking at the world going, people don't even care about that. They'll look beyond that. Now he's just got to worry about his mishandling of COVID that he's got to worry about. But New York is a very short-memoried people. It wasn't. We still didn't have the friggin' rubble from the World Trade Center cleared up, and they were looking to already put a mosque on Ground Zero land.
Right.
And half New York was like, "Oh, okay, well that didn't have nothing to do with it."
Yeah, but it's even beyond that, because remember, not remember, but if you look at the news coverage right now, all of the coverage of Andrew Cuomo, none of it discusses the fact that there was a cover-up of the 16,000 people put into nursing homes that died because of Andrew Cuomo. And the cover-up, which came from his personal secretary talking to the New York State legislature, the Democrats. There's actually an audio file of this. It's documented that there was an active cover-up of that. That's not spoken about. The fact that Letitia James looked at a initial 7 alleged sexual assaults caused by Andrew Cuomo, and the fact that her investigation turned up 11 actual cases that she could bring to court of sexual assault. So it went from 7 to 11. It went from an allegation to an investigation that confirmed 11 of them. No one talks about that in the mayor's race. And right now, and this is actually a good segue somewhat, you may not have seen this, and this is a microcosm of what we are seeing across the country. This is the game that's being played. As you can see right now, as of today, Andrew Cuomo is now using, in case anyone's still remembering the old stuff, now he's going to buy your vote. And I consider this being a bought vote. This is bribery, I think, election bribery. We're saying, oh, he's going to raise the city's minimum wage to $20 an hour. $20 an hour because, free money. You're going to get rich. And, I want people to see this because this is kind of important. I actually have been looking at this for a while. And this is not new. This is a campaign tactic that we have seen done before. In fact, it was done just last year by Representative Barbara Lee, and she was offering $50. Do you know why it was $50 in California? Because they already have a $20 minimum wage. And what did the $20 minimum wage result in? 10,000 people losing their jobs and poverty increasing in California. The minimum wage hurt people. It didn't help people. And in fact, if you look at the data, and not only do I have the data myself, just for this show, I decided that I was going to go through and I was going to get some more recent data. And I went to ChatGPT, which is notoriously left-leaning. And when you go through all the data, and I'm just letting you see that I was asking a sort of simple question. Since 15 minimum wage was enacted, has any city or state benefited? And the only answer you can find is from Seattle, Washington, between the years 2014, 2016, actually 2011 to 2016, there was an increase in wages, but there was a decrease. By the way, they spin this like crazy because there's actually no data that shows it works. But if you go through all of the different ways of asking the question, like did poor people in poverty, did they get to work more? Did they have more hours of work? Did they have more pay? Was there a net increase in the poverty rate or a decrease? Well, when you go through all of the data, the answer you get is that poor people, with the minimum wage going to $15 an hour, in California, $20 an hour. In Seattle, it was $15. And in New York City, which already has a $15 minimum wage, what you saw is poor people got a 3%. And this is, by the way, every year, 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, Biden inflation. Yeah, New York City, the unemployment, the amount of poverty increased every single year. In fact, it went up significantly. And that's even if you're comparing it against the United States, even through the lockdowns and the recovery, New York City had massively more poverty increase than anywhere else with the minimum wage because it didn't help. And if you do the math, as I asked ChatGPT, and this is all ChatGTP. So folks, you're seeing it on screen. You can do this yourself. And if you ask them the simple question, because national data, minimum wage increase resulted in 3% more money for people in poverty who are getting the minimum wage, 3% more increase in their wage, a 9% decrease in the amount of hours that they worked. And when you do the math, as ChatGTP did it for me, so I can show you guys, so you can't say, Mike, you just did the math wrong. This is just you being a partisan. When you do the math, you lose money. Net, you lose money. So everyone that has gotten the minimum wage, whether they like to say it or not, and ChatGTP likes to put up there and say, well, there's a study that says it worked out great. There's a study that says, if you look at it in just this sort of way, it seems to be positive. We project that it's going to be great. No, the numbers themselves, it winds up poor people become more poor. Whether or not and usually the poverty rate goes up with it. I say that because, again, what are we just talking about? Why is Andrew and Andrew Cuomo, the news is all like, hey, he's going to increase minimum wage. They don't mention, by the way, he's responsible for 16,000 people dying. He's responsible for a fraudulent cover-up of what he did. He's responsible for 11 sexual assaults. Where's the Me Too crowd screaming about this man running for office again? People were out of their minds about Anthony Weiner, saying he wants to run again. Why? Because he's a convicted sex offender. Andrew Cuomo got to walk away with $25 million. Coming back now says, oh, forget all that stuff. None of it matters. And the news media is like, we forgot it all. No one needs to think about this. This is a problem. This is why our country's having so many problems. At least that's the way I see it. And again, I'm showing you the data that's coming from ChatGPT. So it's not me being a Republican. It's not the sources I'm using. That's what the left is providing. That's the reality.
That's the easiest way I had it explained to me when it came to the minimum wage and the detriment that it happens to society because of it was actually given to me by an economist while I was going to school. And the way he basically framed it was this: no business in the history of business is going to eat a cost. They're just not going to. So when you up a minimum wage, when you create a minimum wage, you are basically creating solid overhead cost for operations. You can't negotiate labor because labor is the one area where businesses can usually get a little bit of wiggle room to make profit. If you take that away and you make it a standard cost, just like you would if it was a utility, they will ultimately pass that cost on to the consumer, while at the same time trying to cut costs in their own business infrastructure. And that's what your data shows, is that when the minimum wage went up, people lost hours at work because they didn't want to have to pay the higher rate for a longer period of time. And what happens with the prices that consumers have to pay? It goes up. So it drives a sort of inflation. So if
it's not a sort of, it is.
So if you want,
Budget Office has done this 4 times. They've looked at this. Yeah, it creates more poor people every time. And it usually is within a 3 to 6 month window when you see it go up. So yeah, you might start out when it's instituted with more money in your paycheck net, but the prices in the markets will automatically rise to cover the cost of that higher wage now.
Well, here's the way I like to try and think about it when I talk about these things with people. Think of your food budget. Just your food budget. What does it cost for you to eat for the month? And how much money do you have to spend? If I choose to eat the finest of the fine products that I want to eat, it might cost me $500 a month for me to eat if I'm cooking at home. All right, $500. Let's just say that.
Right.
I'm eating the exact same food that somebody making 10 times my salary is eating. Same quantity, same products, same goods. Buying the same steak, buying the same milk, buying the same eggs, buying all the same stuff. The guy making 10 times as much as me is also spending $500 a month on food, as I'm spending. Now, if you raise my rate, right, and I go from $18 to $20 an hour, let's just say, the guy who's working in the deli or in the supermarket who's also making $18 an hour, now he's making 20, and you got 20 people who work in that supermarket. You've got 20 people, that's another $400 a week that the supermarket has got to now pay in their payroll for every week that's there. That's $1,600 a month. That $1,600 a month has got to get added onto the price of the goods and services that supermarket provides. So now where I was spending $500 a month on groceries, now I might have to spend $550 a month on groceries. Okay, so now the the $2 extra I got for every hour is $80 a week. That's $160 for every paycheck, whatever it is. I'm spending more money to get the same amount. Granted, I'm making more, but now it's costing me more. Now that's just my grocery bill. Let's not forget all the other stuff that's going to go up. Everything, my electric bill is going to go up because they have to pay those employees. They have to pay. The guy who's making 10 times as much as me is not going to feel the impact of those raises the same as I'm going to feel them. I'm getting a 10% increase in my food bill, 10% increase in every other one of my bills that I got. Fine. I'm going up 10% across the board. That 10% across the board is a higher percentage of my income than what it is to the other guy who's getting that increase, because it only works out to 1% of his income, whereas opposed to it's 10% of mine. So yeah, raise the minimum wage all you want. It's only hurting the people at the lowest end of the spectrum because they have to pay more for their day-to-day goods as somebody who's got a lot more money. Because it's not going to raise their mortgage rate, but it's going to raise my rent. Because odds are, I don't have the money to buy a house, I have to rent. The guy who's making a lot more money, he's got a mortgage, I got to rent. Which is going to go up? The only way his mortgage goes up is if the interest rates go up. My rent's going to go up because it's costing my landlord more to maintain the property that I live in.
Well, you're assuming he's got a variable rate mortgage. He's got a fixed rate mortgage. I had a fixed
not only that. He's going to, but the landlord's going to pay more for fuel oil. He's going to pay more for gas. He's going to pay more for electric. He's going to pay more to maintain the property itself, because I don't think he's going to be the one out here mowing the lawn, cleaning the windows. He's got maintenance people that have to come in. So the maintenance people that come in to do the work in the house, they're now making more money per hour, which means the cost of maintenance goes up. The guy who's got the mortgage, he's getting incremental raises for the people that take care of his property, but he knows he doesn't have to worry about the cost being passed on. I do.
Well, exactly. And I've covered this many, many times over the years. Like I said, this has been brought to the Congressional Budget Office, which is neutral. It's the government. And they've looked at this. And every time they've looked at this, it hurts poor people. The net final answer is poor people will become more poor, and there will be more poor people. Yes, there'll be like 1%, 2%, 3% that'll be okay, and everyone else gets hurt. Why? Because of what you're speaking about. That's why 10,000 people were fired in California to make sure that the fry guy gets $20 an hour. That's why the politicians now are saying $50 a minimum wage, because it's a bigger number. They got to always throw out a bigger number so that people who are poor think, I'll make more money, except no one does the math. And at the end of the day, you actually are losing money. Just no one's telling you that. No one in the media will do what I just did with Chat GPT and say, okay, your income went up 3%, but you lost 9% of your hours. Are you making money? And the answer is no, you lost money.
Yeah.
That means you just became more poor. And that's before you factor in everything else going up as well. That's just your pay. And now you have to pay, you have less money in your pocket and everything's more expensive. Poor people become more poor. And you know why Andrew doesn't care? And Andrew Cuomo and the rest of these politicians that are pushing these ideas, who are almost always Democrats and progressives. Why do they push it? Because they're not just middle class, they're in the top 10, 15% of the nation, if not the top 1% of the nation. They don't care.
Yeah.
What is it? Pelosi has interns that fills her refrigerator, one of her refrigerators, with nothing but imported designer ice cream. Do you think she cares if it costs an extra buck or two? You will. It's going to affect you. She won't even notice that it's happening. Chuck Schumer doesn't know what the price of eggs are. In fact, there's been several. What's his name? Was sleeping with a spy. Fan.
Kissinger.
Eric Swalwell. Eric Swalwell doesn't. He actually came out. The price of eggs dropped by more than 70%. That was a month ago. And Eric Swalwell's like, the price of eggs are astronomical. He didn't even know the price went down. He just put out a tweet. I actually covered it at the time in April. He put out a tweet, didn't even know that the price of eggs had gone down because he doesn't care. They don't care. The professors at these universities over at Harvard, Columbia, over at Binghamton University, they don't know what the price of things cost because they don't care. You and I do, but then the news media won't tell you. These politicians won't tell you. Oh, but at the end of the day, you're going to be poor. More poor than you started with. And they're buying votes because they're not telling people the truth. And that
here's the other thing that people miss about minimum wage. It eliminates competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minimum wage eliminates competition because instead of companies having to be forced to pay a good wage for good services, for good employees, they say, this is all I have to pay. So this is all I'm going to pay. So what happens is they wind up taking what the market share would dictate for skilled labor on certain jobs and reduces it. Because now it's a matter of not finding the people who are most qualified to do the work. It's going to be who will work for the least. That's what minimum wage does, because now a company has no incentive to say, you know what, all right, minimum wage, I want the best people to pay to do this job, so I'm going to offer the highest amount to get the best and most qualified people to work here. They say, no, what's the minimum I can get away with? Because if everybody's paying the minimum, for it, we have no reason to compete for the highest price, because all we can say is, well, if you think you can do better, go get a job somewhere else. Go see if you can make money somewhere else. Go see if you can get a better paycheck. If companies are not forced to compete for good employees, they're going to pay the minimum. Minimum wage is minimum effort. That's the way employers look at it. Why am I going to pay $30 an hour for some carpenter to come in here and cut 2x4s if I can pay somebody $20 an hour to do it? I don't have to pay that amount of money. I don't have to pay it. That's all the government requires. And whenever you have something that is the minimum requirement to pass, that's all you're ever going to expect to get. That's why they have like minimum code for housing. When I used to build, I looked at what the code was. If something called for a 2x6, I used a 2x8. If somebody called for a 2x10, I used a 2x12. I always went above and beyond what the code called for because I wanted my work to be better. But there are plenty of guys out there that look at what the minimum standard are, and that's what they build to. And when you have a minimum standard of pay, that's what you're going to expect these companies to pay, because they're not going to be expected to pay more because they're not in a competitive field. They don't want to pay for the highest quality. They'll pay for just good enough. And that's why minimum wage is such a detriment to stuff, because you don't turn around. Listen, I would pay, if I knew I was going to get $5,000 worth of work out of somebody that I could pay $3,000 a week for, I'd be happy to pay the $3,000 a week if I got $5,000 worth of productivity. But if you're telling me all I'm going to do is pay $800 a week for somebody to produce $800 worth of work, I have no reason to look for somebody who's going to pay more, because I'm never going to get somebody who produces more than what I'm willing to pay for, because that's what you wind up getting.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and let's step away from the numbers. I know people are looking at math, and like I said, I put it in chat. You don't have to do the math. Ask Chat GPT. It will tell you the math. It will show you the math. So you don't have to believe us They will show you the math, and then just multiply it by every bill you have. You're going to lose money over and over again. But I think the part that most people don't think of is how dishonest this is. That we have people like Andrew Cuomo or Gavin Newsom who are running around this country, AOC, Andrew Yang. They're running around saying this is going to, and all the Democratic Socialists of America, the colleges, all of the left, the progressives are out there running around saying, this is going to be great. You're going to get rich. We're going to just give you money. And they're not telling the public, yeah, but at the end of the day, you're going to be worse than you started with. This is so deceptive. And they're saying, we're going to give you free money. Just give me your vote. Don't ask what happens after that.
Well, here's the question nobody ever asks the politicians when they talk about raising the minimum wage. You just said who was it? Sheila Jackson Lee with the $50? Was that her that you said? Or was that, that was Barbara Lee. That was Barbara Lee, right? All right. If $20 an hour is good, then $50 an hour has got to be better. If $50 an hour is better, why not say $100 an hour and say it's magnificent? And then go on the campaign trail and say, I'm going to guarantee you $100 an hour minimum wage. And why somebody doesn't turn around and say, well, what will that do to the economy? Because if it's going to hurt if raising it to $100, it would be great. Why not raise it to 100?
Well,
why not raise it to 100?
Here's the thing.
And ask for,
well, here's the thing. Joel said it, and people should think about this. Imagine a politician who says, okay, I'm going to give you $500 an hour. Now, you're going to look at that and go, that's stupid. The average person, without any math, if someone just said, I'm going to pay you $500 an hour because you're flipping a burger, you're in McDonald's, you're the fry guy, and they're going to pay you $500 an hour, you would say, that makes no sense. That's stupid. Why would I do that? There is no difference between $500 an hour and $20 an hour when it's a mandatory minimum wage. There is no difference. And if you can look at $500 and go, that's a scam, that's a ripoff, and you won't vote for that politician, then why the hell are you going to do it for someone who says $20 or $50?
Right. So why isn't somebody asking these politicians is, okay, well, if you're going to raise the minimum to 20, have you figured out what that's going to do to the cost of goods and services? And what percentage of goods and services is that going to raise on the people that are making the $20 an hour so that will they be able to sustain the same lifestyle or better at $20 a minimum hour, or will they wind up having less value in their day-to-day life? And none of them will answer that. The media will not ask that question.
The mainstream will not ask that question. They will not have that conversation. I have had that conversation multiple times, and people run away from it because it's doing math.
So turn around and tell, next time you see your buddy Curtis, tell him that you suggest that they say you're going to raise the minimum to $22 an hour. Tell Curtis this.
Then no Republican will vote for him.
No, not as a matter of a campaign promise. Tell him to challenge Cuomo to say, well, if you vote for me, I'll go for 22. Why stop at 20? I'm willing to go to 22. Are you? And if not, why not? Why would you willing to put the line in the sand at $20 an hour? Why not go to 22? If 20 is going to make life better for everybody, then 22 should certainly be more of a positive impact. And if not, tell us why. Because if you can't extrapolate the why not from 15 to 20, then certainly you can't extrapolate it from 20 to 22. You got to challenge these people based on their own ideas because the media is not going to do it. The candidates have to. I mean, what was it? 2 years ago, you kept seeing riots in the street for 3 years with the fight for 15, the fight for 15. Well, why is it not the fight for 15 anymore? What happened in the last 3 or 4 years that 15 is now suddenly not good enough? That now you're up to 20.
No, they changed it to 25. It's called a living wage, and it's 25. And some places, like Barbara Lee, some politicians who are in very tight races go with 50 because it's a bigger number.
Right. So now, So now challenge them by, instead of, if they're going to make fairy tale promises, then give everybody a bigger fairy tale and then explain to everybody else why you're not going along with it. Let them put the shoe on the other foot and say, okay, why not go for more? Why not go for more?
But I understand what you're saying. I can only tell you what has happened. When Barbara Lee was saying $50, and she did this on stage. She did this on a debate when she was debating to run for the Senate, which Adam Schiff won. Adam Schiff never said, well, we can't do 50. He just said, okay, and moved on. And the news media never followed up. They just said, okay.
Well, just remember in 20 years when they're having this discussion, somebody's going to be out there saying it's a fight for 55. Because we'll have surpassed, we'll be at 50 at that point. And somebody's going to say, well, I guess Barbara Lee wasn't as crazy as they thought because she was promising 50 25 years ago. Why? Why do we keep going for more and more and more? It's called inflation. The more prices go up, the more people have to earn to be able to facilitate the same amount of lifestyle. They keep raising it. They don't understand it's a causality. The more shit one goes up, everything goes up along with it, incrementally. And nobody calls them on it.
Guys, I understand that. But the part I'm trying to get across is, in my experience, it's because it's math. And no one wants to do the math. No one even wants to put the numbers into Chat GPT. They don't want to find out the reality. They don't want to do the math. They just like the big number. And remember, we're looking at the average voter is looking at the headline. All they saw and all they're going to hear from all the media tomorrow, next day, you check on it. Just like in California, when Gavin Newsom did this, just like when they did it in Seattle, just like when Barbara Lee was on the stage, all the public heard was $20, $50. Yeah, I'll vote for that. That's all they heard. Not once did anyone stop. And the problem is the media should be doing what we are doing right now, saying
right, and that's
a problem.
Right, but that's why I'm saying, since the media is not doing it and people like us only have a limited amount of reach to it, the person who's got the cleanest and easiest way of being able to ask that question would be the leading candidate of the opposition to pose those kinds of questions in the public forum where they have to be answered, or at least they have to be defended. So tell your buddy Sliwa over there, tell him, hey, while I'm running for mayor, and I don't want you to be able to have a gun, I want to ask Andrew, why stop at 20 and why not go for 22? Why not go for 25? It's certainly got to be better. Explain your math, why 20 is the magic number. Explain it to the people. Because if I use your formula, then I should be able to go to 22. And explain it to them. If the media is not going to ask the question, the candidates have to.
Okay, I understand, but let me clarify something because you said it a couple of times. I don't know Curtis Sliwa.
Well, I keep calling him. Well, only listen. You're going to be in a better.
No, I want people to.
You're in a better position to ask him than I am. I'm not asking him shit from North Carolina.
I understand, but I just want people to understand. It's not like I don't work for his campaign. I'm not on his.
Oh no! Oh no! We know that.
Well, not everyone watching knows that. They will. People who don't want to have this conversation will discount and say, well, you're just a Republican, so you know him and you're not going to. No, I don't work for the campaign, don't know him. I cover events, but I can't.
Right. Well, that's
covering the event and I see him. Yes.
No.
Right. So, but I'm just saying, next time you're at an event and you see him, ask him, why not pose the question to Andrew that if 20 is good, why not go to 22? Have him explain the math. And if his math works out, then why don't you go for 22 and take those votes away from him?
I get it. Go ahead, Dal. I'm sorry.
Now, in my experience, the way to stop this whole business of the inflation, the only way that I see is possible is that if we don't participate in the system at all. And by that I mean, right now we're talking about how the minimum wage affects us because we pretty much all participate in the system. We get the minimum. We live in a world where the minimum wage exists, and everything that we consume is tied to the economy in which the minimum wage exists. Now, one of the things that I did then my family did during COVID was we realized that there is a very real possibility that the current system as it exists would not be able to support us in the lifestyle that we were used to living. So we had to make some changes. And one of the things that we had to change was our grocery bill. Our grocery bill was about $1,500 a month. Big family, have to go through a lot of groceries. So one of the things that we did is we started decoupling from the current supply system by augmenting it by making our own garden and investing our time as opposed to our money. Not everybody can do that, and I understand that. But if we're going to beat this in terms of the economics, and you have the ability to do it, then you should be investing your time rather than your money. Get a small garden going. If you can raise chickens, you can have eggs. You can have meat. Raise chickens. If you put in the time and you can invest the time and decouple a little bit from the current system, you will insulate yourself from these rising inflationary prices. We took a $1,500 grocery bill a month and brought it down to $500. That's a huge drop, and it helped us immensely. And this was just over a 2 to 3 year period when COVID first started. So if we can do it on less than an acre of land, no less, then it's, if you have the ability, then you should be able to do the same. And it costs a fraction of a price to just kind of step back from the current system and learn a new skill. Get rid of a vice, improve yourself, learn a new skill, grow a small garden, learn to preserve your food without refrigeration, using canning or fermenting or whatever else. Do that. It will be beneficial to you. And if you can't, then whatever you can't produce yourself and become more self-reliant, where every time you go to the grocery store, go now at the time that you have and buy 10% more than you normally would and put it away and rotate your stock. You will find that if you do this, you will be better prepared for when this chaos erupts into something horrendous, because it's coming. I mean, I'm not trying to be a doomsayer, but what I am telling you is you gotta do something, even a little bit. Have an herb garden if you can't grow full-on vegetables.
Well, Lori just showed me where the chives are outside.
Your wild chives. That's
Well,
good.
she got chives, basil, oregano, some other stuff. But I wanted to talk about something that Joel said in the comments. He was talking about we're talking about the population of people that thought the 1/3 burger was bigger than the quarter pounder. Yeah. I also just wanted, Joel, just to look at it. This is what they call a Whopper in France. so I just wanted to bring that up real quick. The American retarde. Yeah, so that's what they call the Whopper in France. Just so you know.
All them and their freedom fries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing that I see is right now the American people have basically come to the reliance on government being able to regulate everything from food supply and sourcing to things that they consume every day. If you can, try to decouple. Try to take yourself back a little bit and insulate yourself from this. And it will help during the tariffs as well. A lot of times we were discussing in circles around my community. We're like, all right, well, if we're really reliant on cheap crap from China, what do we do to replace it when we can't get it anymore? Well, it turns out you might have a craftsman in your area. You might actually have people locally that can produce things that you actually want to use. The other thing is you may not need the cheap crap from China. You just want it.
Well,
So you
that's
cut it
most
out.
of it.
Yeah, so
That's
cut
most
it
of it.
out.
The reality is most of it is want,
Yeah.
not need. And that tends to be the biggest problem. But in terms of, but one of the other biggest things people can do is when you get these obviously empty. Well, I would call it obviously empty. I've done the homework on it for years now, for a decade now. I've been following these kinds of stories, and I see the results every single time. But when you get promised a get rich quick scheme by these politicians that they're going to somehow make you richer than you've been before
It's a
by
lie.
just simply forcing someone else to give you more money, vote against them. Universally, I don't care who it is who's making the profits. I don't care what party they're coming from. If they're promising you that, don't worry, I'm just going to take money from this business, this person, and I'm going to give it to you. You are getting screwed every single time. Andrew Cuomo is screwing people. I'm going to give you $20 an hour. Just give me your vote. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care if you make $20 or $50 an hour. He could care less. He just wants your vote. And he knows that this is going to hurt. He's already talked to Gavin Newsom. He's seen the numbers from around the country, just like I have. He's got a team of people that look these numbers up, that did the chat GPT searches at the least. He knows this isn't going to help anyone, but he doesn't care because that's a problem after he wins. And then he can just say orange man bad. And that's it. Answer solved. It's not my fault. Orange man bad. Oh, well, vote for Democrat again in 2028. That's going to be his answer. That is the solution. The next election, vote for our people. And even if you got all of their people in, then what's going to be? Well, those other guys are just bad people. They won't let us pass that law. That's what they said when Obama in 2009, he had a super majority. He had the House, the Senate, the presidency with more than enough votes. It didn't matter what a single Republican said. It didn't matter how they voted. Everything they did would get through. Supermajority. What did Obama do? Nothing. He did nothing except Obamacare. And by the way, did the price of healthcare go down? That was the promise of Obamacare. No, it didn't. Do you have the same doctor? No, you didn't, because he knew you wouldn't. They lied to you about that. So you didn't get to keep your doctor. The price didn't go down. You didn't get more coverage. You got less. Every way you want to define Obamacare, you didn't get it. But he promised that it was going to, he said it's going to be better. But it's not. Oh, you're going to, California, Gavin Newsom said, oh, don't worry, you're going to have more money. But you don't. New York State, they said it here too. $15 minimum wage, and you won't be poor anymore, but you are. Why are you going to believe it now when Andrew Cuomo, someone you shouldn't trust in the first place, says it, why are people going to say, oh, $20? Yeah, I'll vote for that. God help me. I can't understand this. I can't understand this, and it's going to happen. I guarantee. And the next election, you'll hear it from half a dozen. If it works for Andrew Cuomo and he gets in, saying $20, I guarantee you're going to hear every Democrat running in the elections. If they have a close race or they think they have a close race, they're going to say, we need a living wage. We need 20, 25. Some of them will say $50 for a minimum wage. You're going to hear it all through 2026 because they don't care. They just want the vote. And it doesn't matter how big a lie they need to make. It's so horrible.
I want to address something that Joel just brought up. He said, I think we need to re-elect no one for a few election cycles. That's an interesting discussion. And I was playing that out with a bunch of friends of mine here and people that I'm associated with. And one of the questions I had was, well, our way our voting system works, you would never have no one participate. So someone is always going to receive a vote. What you are suggesting would be a great idea if the entire population just decided not to show up. No one voted. Not one person voted at all. Then you might, under the current rules, then you might see something happen where the politicians would get scared and they'd be like, well, holy shit, we really screwed up because no one came out. But you'd have to have the consensus of the entirety of the voting base to have that work. as it currently stands, because only a few states have referendums where the constituents can actually pull the representation, which I think is a bit of a missed opportunity on the part of the voter. Because if we had more people, no, I know what you meant. All new people, no one was reelected. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, well that that too is hard, because you'd still need the consensus of the entire population to refuse to vote for incumbents. And you're not going to get that kind of consensus. You're just not. And the reason you're not going to is because many of these politicians that are incumbents have their bases, as Frank was saying, in their donors, like their PACs. They'll vote. Everybody that contributes to that PAC will vote for that candidate. So if everyone was to check out and basically say, we're only electing new people, you still would, the people that were left behind, that are behind these candidates, that are donating big amounts of money to PACs to get them to run campaigns, would still beat out everybody that tried to not elect incumbents.
I don't know. I think if everyone actually paid attention to what these guys were saying, all the candidates, and like, again, going with the example right now, New York Mayoral Race, there are 7 candidates that I'm aware of. 7. The news media isn't talking about 7. They're talking about 3, and they're all Democrats. What about the other 4? They don't want to talk about them. That's insane. And the public should say, where's the other candidates? I'm not going to watch CNN until I find out that you're talking about the other 4 people. I'm not going to read the New York Times unless you guys actually do an interview with the other 4 candidates. Because you did an interview with Cuomo. You did an interview with Mondami. You're doing the ones that you like, that you want in office. The choices that the media likes, they're getting interviews, they're getting publicity, and everyone else that they don't like, oh, well, they don't exist. And until people start saying, no, they have to exist. I don't trust you. I don't believe you. I won't give you my money, regardless of how many ads go up there. I'm not giving money until you tell me who else is there. I need to choose. Until we do that, the system's going to just remain busted. But I did want to move, unless you guys want to stick on this, I did want to bring up something that I thought, and I brought this up once before. I don't know if you may have covered it or not, but and again, more news from today that just came out. A lot of people won't notice this one. Actually, it came out yesterday, but we're talking about it today. And this is actually old news. This is from November 18th, 2024. I did a whole segment on this. And this segment is simply on the idea that Democrats are going to have a shadow government. And it's not going to let me show the title, but okay, fine. So this is that there's going to be a shadow government. Democrats want to have a shadow. So there's President Trump. The United States has a Secretary of State. The Democrats want their Secretary of State. Won't be official, but they'll have someone there. The United States has Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, Marco Rubio, he's the United States Secretary of State. Well, the Democrats would have their own. Tulsi Gabbard, they'd have their own. Every position, the Democrats want to have their own. And this is how scary this is. This is terrifying. Because in November, I said, that's insurrectionist. That's how you split the country. That's how you have a civil war. I said that in November. And then the Democrats let it go. Now it's back. The Democrats are pushing it again. This is from Politico. I believe this came out yesterday, last night. Came out last night. Democrats told me, "Oh, don't you want Jon Stewart? He'll be talking for the Democrats. Letitia James will be talking for the Democrats. They got Bill Nye, the science guy, is going to be part of the shadow Democrat government. Wait a minute, well, we already have a government. The United States only has one government. There is no shadow government. There is no, if you have a shadow government, that's an insurrection. That's how I read that. I said that in November when they came up with this idea. I say it again. That's how you create an insurrection. That isn't the way things are done. There's a reason why we don't have a shadow government.
You're the second from the top on the left of the screen. That was Ben Stein.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I
was like,
which I don't understand. Why would the left be including Ben Stein in anything? He's a Republican strategist and economist.
I know, but it's because this is all about them just making it up. They're just making it up as they go because it's about power. It's you can't trust Orange Man bad. You can't trust MAGA and Republicans. You have to trust us. We have look at our super winning team of really popular people. They could be running everything. See, and don't you want them? Don't you want their answer? Oh, what's the problem with the economy? You need a minimum wage. You need a universal, a UBI, universal. What is it?
basic income.
Basic income. That's it. UBI, universal basic income, which every study that has ever been done on that has shown it doesn't work, including the 10-year study in Kenya done by MIT. It doesn't work. But but here's our team. We have an alternate team, and you like them. You don't like Orange Man bad because, he's the devil itself. And MAGA, well, they're obviously 1930 Germans, so you can't like them, but you can like our guys. We have a government ready to go. Just give up on the government that already exists and throw away the Constitution, throw away the amendments, throw it all away. Just go with the Democrats. Just obey. You'll like them. They'll be completely authoritarian.
Well,
you'll never have a
listen.
place to vote again. Go ahead.
I say we encourage them to hold their first meeting and then have the federal government go in there and arrest them all for sedition.
That's if you get Pam Bondi to do it.
I think that should be the correct answer. This is insurrectionist. That this is how you create a civil war.
Well, the insurrectionist part would come under violence. Would have to be coupled with violence. What they're doing is called sedition. They're looking to they're formulating a organization that's specifically being used to undermine the authority of an established, agreed upon, legitimately voted in government structure. That's what they're trying to do. They're seditionists. What that is an act of treason.
Yes.
And they need to be fought. And now, if they just talk about it, is one thing. Okay, you can talk about a crime all you want. It's not until you act upon the speaking of that crime by actually coming together in an organizational form through a meeting that you have now committed the act. So they can, what that is basically the structure of a RICO case filed under sedition. So let them get together, let them call a summit, let them say, hey, we're all together here to figure out how we can replace this government. Congratulations. You're all under arrest for sedition and treason. File into the van. Let's go. And that's how you do that. They can talk all they want. If there's no violence or there's no physical act of a meeting, there's nothing you can do other than say, well, they're testing the waters by, floating a trial balloon. That's what they're doing. They want to see if they get any kind of support for it. They're trying to elevate their public persona. That's what basically is. It's a publicity stunt more than anything else. Believe me, they will have been advised well in advance of how far they should be able to push what they're trying to do before it becomes a crime. And that's how far they'll push it. Our job is to push them further and say, okay, now that you've gone ahead and done this, let's see you get some traction, hit the floor running, and start moving forward with it. We challenge, because if you're not going to move forward with it, and you're not willing to put your skin in the game, then shut the fuck up. How about that?
Yeah.
Because I know 56, I know the names of 56 people that did put it all on the line. That did put it all on the line, and a new government was formed from it, and they were all charged with sedition and treason by the government that was established before ours. So if these people want to go ahead and do it, go ahead and do it. Put the same skin in the game that our founders did, and if you think you can formulate a brand new government that to a more perfect union, as it were, then go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try. If you can get enough, if you can get the 3% of the American people to back you and overthrow the existing structure, by all means, go for it. I encourage you to try it.
I think part of this is, of course, that they put it out in November and everyone laughed at it and said, no, that is absolutely the antithesis of America. When North Carolina Representative Wiley Nickel first came up with the idea, it was his idea originally, or at least he was the face of it. And now they're trying it again. We see it coming out with Politico, doing this just after Memorial Day, after we were celebrating the men and women who have bled and died for our country and the freedoms we have right now, which is one government, no shadow government, one government, whether you like it or not. That's the government we have. When Obama was in, I didn't like it. You know what? We didn't create a shadow government. When Clinton was in, I didn't like it. We didn't create a shadow government. When Biden was a part-time zombie and we didn't know who was in charge, we didn't create a second government.
Yeah.
Democrats are, because Joanna said it, they're authoritarian. And I think that says a lot. Now,
Well,
I see a lot of. No, go ahead, Frank.
well, I was going to say, we've already seen, I mean, they're looking to form a second government. We already know that in the last 4 years, we had a second administration, because the first administration checked out of there about three years into their tenure and was being run by somebody else for the last year. And all we have to do is look at the gaggle behind the auto pen to see who was actually in charge. So if they're figuring they already got away with it for a year by replacing one branch of government, what's the difference if they put something together to replace the other two?
This also comes at about the same time that the Democrats have been shelling out about $20 million as a star search to find their version of Joe Rogan. They need an organ that's willing to connect with the people and somehow make the DNC more palatable again. And so they're actively star searching. So a lot of those people that you showed in the shadow government, a lot of those are influencers. They're people in the media that generally talk to the public and more than the DNC as a political organ have their pulse, are able to take the pulse of the nation. But you're right, Frank, until they actually sit in a room together and like try to form a new confederacy, there's really nothing that they can do. You know, there's nothing to them other than a publicity stunt. Now, it's not to say that it's not serious that they're trying to float this. And this is something that Americans won't know because we didn't live it. But you listen to, if you were around for people that talked about the period in the Civil War, they didn't realize in the periods prior to the Civil War that America as a union of the states was in trouble. They just knew that there was a lot of division. Families were arguing with each other, friends were arguing with each other, neighbors were arguing with each other. But no one really suspected that it would ever erupt into violence between one side and another. Like, I can remember my grandmother talking about her father, right? And she, as a young girl, she doesn't remember everything, but she remembered her family arguing still about the Civil War long into like the era of the First World War, the Second World War. There were still disagreements among many of my family that stemmed from the Civil War. And they would talk about conditions then, and if they were to, I haven't talked to her recently, but I'm sure that if I were to ask her, hey, have you kept abreast with the local politics, she'd be looking around and she'd be going, this echoes a lot of what my parents used to talk about when I was a kid. I mean, the division is there, and we're on a very, very sharp precipice right now
Well,
as far as the attitudes in this country.
I'm of the contention that the division is always there, regardless of what generation it is. I believe the division is always going to be there, and I think the division is going to be there in every single society that we have.
Yeah.
Whether it's our nation, somebody else's country, whatever, there's going to be people who've got opposing viewpoints. I think the difference now is that we live in the electronic age. Every single thought, every single idea, everything else, we live in a situation where people have got to post, they can't fart without making a social media post about it. We live in this, everything is now fully explored. Nobody has any private thoughts anymore. Nobody has any reflective moments where they sit and they think about anything. No, it's as soon as they get a thought in their head, they got to tweet it out to somebody. They got to do something. So we're living in a situation now where I think all these seditious thoughts, all of these things which have always been there, are just so much more readily available because everybody's in everybody else's business and nothing is kept private anymore. So people have been feeling this. I mean, look, the seeds of the Civil War was sown into our founding from day one. Okay, from the Virginia Compromise on, the founders knew that eventually there would come a time when our 13 colonies, if it remained 13 colonies at the time, would eventually tear themselves into multiple pieces until certain things could be remedied on a permanent basis. The founders knew that. The seeds for discontent were planted in the soil of America. The seeds of discontent were going to be there regardless of what. You're going to have people that, don't call the Civil War the Civil War. They still call it the War of Northern Aggression. They still look and there's still people that believe that Lincoln was a war criminal. There's people that believe, they talk about General Lee being evil. General Lee was an abolitionist. He just happened to be loyal to the South because that's where he lived. You had slave owners in the North who fought to free the slaves. You had abolitionists in the South that fought for the Confederacy. Everything's always a mess. It's a mess one way or another. It's just that right now we're in a world where everything is public. Where people had these conversations 50 years ago in the back room of some bar someplace, they're now having it at the counter at Starbucks because it's acceptable. It's acceptable. It's public. We live our lives on the screen now. So of course you're going to hear more of it. You're going to see more of it. That's why when we hear of of mass murders taking place, we're no longer shocked. Because they may have happened 30, 40 years ago, but they weren't so grandly popularized. Things have been happening. Bad things have been happening since the dawn of time. We know more about it now than we did then, and it's in our face 24/7. So we're going to see more, and the thing is, it emboldens people. It emboldens people to think that they can do more and more and more, and there's less consequence for their action. And it's just going to continue to get worse. It's going to continue to get worse until America decides that, you know what? Maybe it's a time that we start getting back to a world of civility. Maybe it's a time when people start, having a little bit of self-respect, a little bit of self-concern, a little bit of respect for your neighbor, respect for your friend. We don't have that anymore. We've allowed ourselves to devolve into a society that craves dirt, that craves blood, that craves mayhem. And it's being pushed by the people in power because they know the more of it that gets pushed into society, the more power they retain, and the further down the ladder we go away from the seat of power. They can keep power from us by retaining more, by infusing more of this crap into our society. If it bleeds, it leads, and they're happy with it. You show me a gun control advocate out there that doesn't love a good old-fashioned school shooting. They love They love to stand on the corpses of children. They bathe in that blood every day because all it does is further their agenda. If it was peace, they'd have nothing to complain about. None of these groups operate in a situation where they work for their own obsolescence.
Well,
They don't want to work for their own obsolescence. They need themselves to be relevant, so they cheer on the thing that causes their relevancy.
well, that's
That's the world we live in.
well, the world we live in is where we see things like this, where discrimination is a reality, but it's not about race anymore. They'll say race because that's the way to silence you. They'll say it's sexist because it's about silencing you, even though realistically that's not the case. Not what they do instead is the bias now is about, oh, you're a conservative. Well, go to school. Now you're not. They're going to indoctrinate you. And they admit it. Harvard's admitting it now. Oh, you're a conservative? Yeah, you got no place on Harvard. That they've eliminated any other voice. It's a bubble. It's an echo chamber. It is an indoctrination camp to just make sure, oh, no, but you're going to agree. Why? Because every teacher you've had has been part of this indoctrination, and you're just going to follow along because they don't care about you. They don't believe in you. They don't want the best for you.
Well, look, I mean, that's a perfect example. I'll give you another example. We don't have enough domestic terrorism. So let's increase the amount of people that we bring from foreign countries that have a moral objection to the American way of life. Let's bring more of those people here. Let's make sure we don't give them background checks. Let's bring them in by the tens of thousands. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll have a couple of them who want to set bombs off. You know what? There's not enough animosity towards the LGB movement in this country. They're accepted. The people have accepted gay marriage. They've accepted this. Let's accept. How do we push the bubble? Let's have big sex contests up and down Main Street in every town, where we have this pride thing and that pride thing. Let's encourage people to chop their kids' genitalia off, and let's put it under the LGBT banner. That'll be certain to get more people to hate them. Let's push it into the schools. Let's push it into private clubs. Let's push girls into the Boy Scouts, put the boys out of the Boy Scouts. Let's push this. Every single thing that they want to do, they keep pushing the agenda. Oh, we don't have enough small crime, so let's eliminate bail. Let's eliminate the penalty for small crimes. Let's raise the felony margin from $1,000 to $5,000. Let's not prosecute shoplifting. Let's not prosecute domestic battery. Let's not prosecute assault. Let's not prosecute all of these things. Let's let crime run rampant, because that's what our society needs more of. We need to infuse more. Let's start making sure that we don't ever prosecute people of color for the crimes that goes. Let's make sure that we start instituting racially discriminatory policies and how we allocate justice in this world. So, the white guy who defends a train car full of people by subduing a violent criminal, let's charge him with murder. But let's make sure that the guy whose son was shot by cops for aiming a gun at them, and then the following day runs down a cop who's crossing kids at a school crossing, let's make sure that he gets $5 million raised on GoFundMe. Let's make sure that the kid who stabbed another kid, that his family gets to raise $1 million on GoFundMe. Because that's the kind of thing that we need in society, to see violent, extreme behavior be rewarded. But let's take the heroes and incarcerate them. Let's make sure that we deny you your civil rights to be able to defend yourself, but then the people that cut your throat with a knife in the subway get to walk out of court without having to post bond. That's going to make sure that everything is equal. The powers that be have been diluting our society by introducing worse and worse things into it so they could drive the wedge further between the powers that be and we the people. And then they turn around and tell us our votes don't count because they count the votes. We can't run because we can't meet the minimum threshold. This is what's happening in this country. And then when they form their little groups to talk about overthrowing the government, they do it because they've already done it. and they got away with it. And it's not until people are hung from the gallows and held responsible for what they've actually done to this country that we're going to see it stop. It's going to continue to happen. Innocent blood is going to continue to be spilled, and we, the people, are going to continue getting the shaft. And people got to wake up to realize that. It's not about black versus white. It's not about black versus yellow, brown versus yellow, any of the colors. It's not about Christian versus Muslim versus Jews. It's about us versus them. And until we start seeing that there is an us in the we the people part of it, it's going to be them controlling us. We've got to see that.
Like
I'm sorry, I'm done.
No, like the fall of Rome.
Yeah.
If anybody,
just
look at the
give them the bread.
last. Yeah, look at the last. 50 to 60 years of the Roman Empire, and you'll see the fall of Rome in the United States. That's where we're at right now. And like I said, the only thing that we can do, that we the people can do, is locally reach out to your neighbor, reach out to your family. And you insulate yourself as you can. Build a civilization in your own backyard, and then maybe we can build it up to regain the control of the country. But until then, you're not going to really see it. You're going to see the powers that be at the top are driving down on us, and that's not liberty, folks. That's not us having our liberty. That's us being controlled and being subjugated. And that's where we're at.
All right, guys, listen, it's getting on 10 o'clock. I have a 30-second promo I have to put up before we call it a night, because at 10:05 I actually have another call I have to use our stream for. But I just want to share this real quick because I've been filming these things and I want to share it with you.
Nice. Now,
So every week
are you throwing those knives?
Yes, I am.
You're gonna have to teach
All
me,
right.
because I can never get it played first.
In trying to film the vignettes to try and promote the Alpha Challenge, because there are going to be at least 30-second spots that I'm building to try and give everybody a little clue as to what challenges are included in the Alpha Challenge. So I've now learned to become a knife throwing master. So, because to film these, because I can't let people in on what the challenges are until I put the whole thing together. So every one of the challenges, to which there are now 50 of. There are now 50 challenges in the Ultimate Alpha Challenge. I will be recording a vignette demonstrating at least 35 of them, because there's 15 that I cannot demonstrate, that have to be kept under wraps. But I'll be demonstrating a little snippet. So every week I'm going to put another one on. They're going to be on the Instagram, on the Facebook, on the YouTube, everywhere else. I just want to, and listen, that's not including the shooting portion of the challenge. So there's going to be a little something for everybody. People have already said, "Oh my God, it's an endurance test. I can't do endurance." It's not. Trust me. I've been developing this thing for a long time to make it so that, I mean, for God's sake, we can get Stephen Hawking to roll down this thing in his wheelchair, and he'll be able to at least compete at some level. We're creating something that all of us can participate in, and all of us have a chance of winning. I've made this very even-handed. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fantastic. People who win something are going to win either a big chunk of change or really cool prizes. It's going to be amazing. But the next vignette, let's just say William Tell might have something to do with it. But listen, I'm gonna sign out from that. And yes, I've become quite good at that too. Listen, everyone's going to be very happy that I'm not participating in the challenge.
Are you the one standing under the apple, William Tell?
No, no. I'm not. But just pray for my dog. That's all I'm going to say. No, I would never. I would never. All right, guys, listen. Dal, give us a sign out. Then Vass, give us a sign out. Then I'll do the last one.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on the Liberty First Foundation's weekly roundtable. We will be back again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. I'm Dal Grimm from the Grimm Liberty channel on Rumble. You can find me there sometimes, and I'm also Dal Grimm on X if you want to follow. Mostly I'm just trolling politicians with dank memes on X whenever I get the opportunity, once I stop being locked out. Thank you very much for everybody in the chat. We appreciate you greatly. Please sign up with us at the Liberty First Foundation's website, L1FS, L1F.us. And it's $15 a month. It's like a Netflix subscription when it used to be.
A year. It's a year.
Sorry, $15 a year. And it's cheaper than a Netflix prescription or a subscription used to be. And spread us around. Hit the bell, like, share, subscribe, comment below. We do read the comments, and we will get back to you as soon as we are available.
We have the best value in freedom. Vass, take it away, brother.
All right. So everybody, please, we look forward to the comments after the show being live. Leave a comment. Tell us, do you agree? Do you disagree? We've talked about a lot of things. You know what? Nobody else is having a panel conversation on and commentary about politics, talking about the tariffs, talking about what's happening in our elections, the lies that some politicians are trying to sneak past you to take away your power, your freedom, and to put in themselves to themselves. You only get that here every Wednesday. Please do join us at 8 p.m. If you want to find out more, please check me out every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What's the title? It is
No Soundbites
Allowed. That's right. Just type that in any search engine. I've been doing this for 20 years now. Please take some time to join us. Leave your comments, leave your likes. Please subscribe, because we're talking about the unapproved messages, and the news media doesn't want us to do that. The social media doesn't want us to do that. They want you to obey and not think. We want you to think and then do whatever you think is right. But with that said, I thank you for being here with us tonight, whether it was for 5 minutes, for the full 2 hours. And of course, I'm going to hand it off to my good friend Frank Johnson to take us away.
All right, and the third Sunday of every month, No Soundbites Allowed. Vass does his show completely in a pair of Speedos and covered in baby oil. So, with that, I'm going to... trying to help you drum up the ratings, brother. All right, listen, folks. We love you guys. We thank you. We love you guys. We call him Slippy Mike Vasquez. All right, we love you guys. We appreciate you being here. And like always, please shoot straight. Be safe, and we'll catch you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and all the rest of that stuff. And go to Facebook, find the Ultimate Alpha Challenge Facebook page, and like that and share that. That's going to be expanding every week with more details. You ain't going to know whether to shit or go blind when you see it we put together. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.